I call Clayton Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and to members of the House here tonight and ladies and gentlemen back home watching late night and exciting, entertaining TV. It's not a matter of if we have another earthquake, it's a matter of when we're going to have another earthquake or a sizeable civil defence emergency in this country. We don't know how big it's going to be, but it is inevitable we're going to have some more of what we've had and potentially larger than what we've got. And this bill is about readiness and recovery, but it's more about the recovery side and it's not really about the readiness, because I don't think this bill covers off the large extent of the earthquakes or large civil defence matters that we are talking about here, whether it be a tsunami, a landslide, or, dare I say it, a earth seismic shift that's going to bring buildings down, sir. This bill here, as it stands in the House, is just a quick fix. It's a band-aid. There's a template here that we need to grow on, and New Zealand First certainly would endorse a speedy bill brought to this House that looks after the Part 2 of the Christchurch earthquake, sir. Because as we sit here now today, we are only patching up a few areas that we have seen we've got some flaws in, but the bigger picture is actually to be really in a state of readiness so that we can quickly recover and get our communities and our lives back intact and back on track once we have an event such as we've just witnessed down in Kaikoura. And dare I say it, you know, it's a bit cliched, I know, that there's a certain steady resolve of the people down in Kaikoura. And somebody made a comment about something that I had posted on social media about saying, oh, that's just a cliche, nobody's ever ready for that. But going down there and actually speaking to the people of Kaikoura, and I would have loved to have spent more time going into more remote areas, it's a bit of a keep calm and carry on sort of a feel down there, because panicking or getting themselves into a state of flux is not going to help. And so they know they've got a job to get on with, and they expect, and we are there as government officials to ensure that we can actually help them with that recovery state, which again, this bill helps do. It does deal with recovery. It doesn't prepare us for the readiness which we're talking about in those large events. Mr Speaker, going down to Kaikoura and speaking with police, and spending some time down there with some of the issues that they had with visitors and moving those groups of people out of the area, with the huge amounts of food and water and fuel that was required to keep that community operating, and at the goodwill of the people, particularly at the marae where they were housing and feeding up to 1,000 people a day, and just so happily to do so, sir, was great to see. So there is a resolve, a keep calm, carry on attitude of Kiwis, which I love to see, and I certainly do applaud the way that people and the manner in which they have conducted themselves despite the deplorable actions of a very, very small group of people that decided to take the opportunity to do some looting in the area, something that is frowned upon from all corners of our communities, and something that we hope to see stamped out on with very strong, severe punishment and legislation to do so, sir. Mr Speaker, we certainly will be continuing our support to get this through the House as it goes through the night, so it can actually be implemented tomorrow. And we've heard the Mayor himself from here in Wellington, Justin Lester, say that he will be implementing aspects of this new legislation for Wellington. If you looked at the trajectory from 2011, where the earthquake was in Christchurch, to Kaikoura, it's almost, if you're plotting a graph, you can see it's almost an inevitability. It's not a word, I made that up, but it sounded sort of right, didn't it? An inevitability. That it's going to end up being an earthquake here, and it's something that's been predicted for a very long time. And making sure that these large buildings and structures in this city are ready and are actually fit for purpose is hugely important as we move forward. But it's about making sure that those people, I guess, have the resolve and the peace of mind is the word that I'm thinking of, sir. The public safety is of one concern, but the peace of mind. And although the bill doesn't directly specify that those assessments, those seismic reports of those buildings are not given directly to tenants themselves, they certainly would be accessible, because of course through territorial authorities and councils you can access that sort of information on building plans, etc. But it certainly would be nice, and I'm sure in many cases, in most cases even, sir, you will have landlords acting responsibly, making sure that that information is available for their tenants, because of course it is in their best interest that they've got tenants that feel comfortable working in that environment and in that building and living and sleeping and being in that environment also. So we hope to see the good nature of that. So it does bring me to a conclusion insofar as we have had 11 government buildings be all but condemned in this recent shake of 7.5. And I have to say, of the number of earthquakes that I've been in, this was probably one of the most gentlest earthquakes. I felt it in Tauranga at 6 minutes past midnight, but it was quite gentle, and I understand from people that were here in Wellington, it wasn't the sort of violent shake that Christchurch felt. And if it had been a different shake, we might have had a different result. But sir, I can't believe that out of the number of properties that have been red stickered in this city in Wellington, 11 of them, vast majority of them being government businesses. I just think that a lot of the work has not been done yet. And are we adequately resourced with those people, those building inspectors, to ensure that they are resourced with the right numbers of staff to get around to make sure that that happens? And I certainly hope that councils in this government ensures that that can be done swiftly and effectively and efficiently so that those people can feel safe and are safe in our streets. We will be continuing our support through with this. We'd like to see it brought into fruition tomorrow. And sir, we would certainly again add urgency to this government to bring part 2 of this legislation, which is encompassing the recovery and the readiness for large-scale events, something that this is just a band-aid fixing up, but we need to think of the bigger picture as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Call Brett.